Hey guys, this is Mark Ryan Slee, and in this episode of Micromatic, we're gonna find out what's in this bag. So just for funsies, I wanted to take a minute and show you what I commonly have in my camera bag. And now this is the bag that I usually have over my shoulder when I go out. A lot of times I go hiking, I go biking. This is the camera bag I bring. I even carry this with me when I go on a motorcycle ride. It's a nice, durable little bag, and it is, as you can see, compared to the size of my hand, it is not a very large bag, but as you'll see, it actually ends up holding quite a bit, at least in terms of Micro Four Thirds gear. So without further ado, let's check out what's inside. Here's a nice little view of the top. You can see I've got a couple of columns of lenses here. I've got a column of camera here, and then over here I've got some accessories. I'll actually go ahead and pull out everything so we can see it individually, but just to give you an idea of how it looks inside this little bag, that's my gear. So first I'll pull out my EP5. This is my main camera. I actually have two cameras. Obviously I'm recording with one right now, if you couldn't figure it out by now. The one I'm recording with is an Olympus EPM2, but this, my EP5, I would consider my main camera. And it's my main camera because it's got a couple of features that the EPM2 doesn't have, such as a tilting screen. It's got built-in 5-axis image stabilization, which maybe in another video I'll actually talk about the benefits of stabilization because it's pretty cool. But as you can see, it's a nice looking camera. That's my main jam. I'll put it over here. And also maybe you'll notice I've got a little wrist strap on it. Usually I have a wrist strap and I have a neck strap, and I kind of alternate between them depending on the situation, right? If I'm gonna go out and I want the camera out all the times, maybe I'll bring the neck strap and I'll just wear it out and have the bag on my side. Or if, you know, I'm just going out and I don't think I'll have the camera out that much, I'll use the wrist strap. So let's dig back into here. Before I get too far into the lenses, I'll show you this little front slot. I've got a filter. This is the only filter I've got right now, which is a polarizing filter. That goes onto the front of a lens, and as you rotate it, you can adjust the polarization. It doesn't look like that's actually changed anything here on the camera. But the polarizer is really nice if I'm out shooting in bright sunlight, and you know, a lot of the times bright sunlight directly on things, or even in the sky, can create really harsh contrasts. This is nice to break out in those events. Let's see. Again, before I dive into the lenses, right here we go. This is a must-have. This is a microfiber towel. If you don't have one of these in your bag, highly recommend it. It's just good for, you know, you're out shooting and maybe I'm by the ocean, I'm getting a lot of spray coming up. It's useful to just wipe off the lens and not have to worry about scratching up the lens because it's a nice little microfiber towel. Let's see, and this little side pocket, this is not very interesting, but I hold a silica packet. It's made for absorbing moisture. In case you don't know, I live in Pacifica, California, which is right by the coast. It's actually a pretty moist area, and so to protect my lenses and camera equipment, I just keep one of these in the bag at all times. I'll throw that back in there because it's not that interesting, I'll be honest. See, also in this little side pocket, I've got a couple of small things. Here we've got the Olympus body cap lens. Let's see if we get that to focus. This is a 15mm lens, and yeah, this is the entirety of the lens. It looks really small, it looks really handy, but unfortunately, it's actually not any good. I don't know, it was pretty cheap. I think I paid 40 bucks for it. So as far as lenses go, that's, you know, incredibly cheap. That said, I've really only used it for, I don't know, one scenario where I thought I actually got some pretty good pictures of it. I was chasing my nephew around the beach, and it did its purpose. Maybe I got $40 of use out of it then. But yeah, I usually leave it in my bag, don't use it that often. Now this here is a little bit more interesting. This is a macro lens adapter. Let's see, what is it? What does Olympus label this? This is the MCON PO2, I think? And so this is just a small lens adapter that fits onto the front of many of my lenses, including this here. This is my 45mm lens. it just fits on the front of that lens, and it turns that lens into a semi-macro lens. Now, it's not as good as a full-on macro lens, but you know, for the price, it was, I think, $60. It does the job, and it's certainly a lot easier to carry around this than a dedicated macro lens. Unless, you know, if you shoot a lot of macro, obviously it's going to make sense to carry a macro lens. I do not shoot macro, so at least not very often. Actually, it makes me think I should have brought this up. On the front of my EPM, my EP5 rather, I've got the Olympus 45mm lens, f1.8. I'm thinking I'm going to do a review of this lens pretty soon, because this lens to me epitomizes micro four thirds and the benefits of micro four thirds. You can see it's not too large, and this is probably my most used lens. It's just, for the way I see things, it's a nice all-around lens. I know a lot of people maybe think of this as just a portrait lens, but for me it serves a lot more purpose than that. Let's see further in my bag, and just to be clear, I am not pulling things out from behind the bag. These are all things that fit in my bag. Here I've got my Olympus 25mm lens. For a lot of people that ask me, you know, they're getting into photography and they're interested in micro four thirds, this is one of the lenses I recommend right off the bat. This Olympus 25mm lens is it's a good all-around lens. You know, it can do portrait duty, it can do landscape duty. It's not super wide angle, but it's still pretty decent for taking photographs indoors. And again, it's not telephoto, so it's not a classic portrait lens, but you can make it work. Yeah, I don't know. If you're into DSLR gear, this is kind of the equivalent of the nifty 50 in micro four thirds terms. I have that bad boy. Let's see, here underneath of it, I have got the Olympus 40 to 150mm zoom lens. This is the only zoom lens I actually own. I don't know, I feel like a lot of people, when they think of a good camera gear, they kind of assume that good camera gear includes a camera with a lot of zoom. And this lens actually, you know, it zooms quite a bit. Let's see, 40 to 150mm. It's a 3x zoom, but that doesn't really tell the picture. This is pretty good for shooting pictures just of, you know, things that are pretty far away. Good for shooting pictures of birds. I even use it for some landscapes and stuff too. But of all my lenses, not counting this thing, not counting this bad boy, but of all my lenses, this is probably the weakest of my lenses. And it's not a bad lens. It's just, it's a cheap lens. I think I paid $150 for it, brand new. And so for that price, it's great. It does the job, but it's just not the first lens I reached for, because image quality wise, it's solid. It's just not as stellar as something like this 45mm or this 25mm. So further in the bag, ooh, this is my favorite lens. This is an Olympus Pen F 38mm lens. And now, what does all of that mean? It doesn't really matter what it means. Here's what's interesting about this lens. One, this lens is about 50 years old. This lens was made in the 1960s for an old Olympus camera system, not micro four thirds. It was made for the Pen F system. And what's kind of neat about the Pen F system is it was a lot like micro four thirds in that, you know, the Pen F system highly valued size. And you can tell this lens, even though this is an old DSLR style lens, it's the same size as micro four thirds lenses. And so I've got, you know, an adapter on the back of this to make sure that it fits to my micro four thirds cameras. And in a future video here on Micromatic, I'll actually talk about adapting lenses, because it kind of sounds scary, but as you get into it, you find out that it's super simple. But yeah, so this is my 38mm lens. Honestly, this is probably my favorite lens. I said this right here, this 45mm is my most used lens, and that's true. This is my favorite though, and I don't use it maybe quite as much as this one, just because this is all manual focus. I cannot use autofocus with this lens, and that's not a big issue, but if there are certain things I'm trying to shoot, if I'm hanging out with my nephew or my little brother and I'm trying to shoot pictures of him riding a motorcycle or jumping down a cliff, Manual focus is not the best for that situation, and so that is why this Pen F lens is not my most used, even though it is my favorite lens. Underneath that Pen F lens, we have the Olympus 75mm lens, and now you can see there is a lot of glass here. This is a pretty hefty lens. As far as prime lenses go, this is quite big. Let's see if I can compare it to the 25mm. All right, that's big. That's a big lens, and look at the front of that. Look how much glass there is on that 75mm lens. So this 75mm is a pretty, let's say it's a specialty lens, right? It's a long reach lens. It doesn't zoom. Again, this is the only zoom lens I have. But this is a telephoto lens, even though it's not zooming. So that just means as soon as I put it on the camera, I am automatically bringing things a lot closer to me. And this lens, the 75mm from Olympus, is, I don't know, it's considered maybe one of the best lenses for Micro Four Thirds. I mean, it's definitely one of the best. If it's considered the best, that is debatable. But it is very, very close to being one of the best lens for the system. It's a fairly expensive lens, but I actually picked this one up as a refurbished unit from Olympus. If you are interested in some of Olympus's lenses, they end up having pretty good deals on their refurbished lenses fairly frequently, and so that's a good thing to watch for. So now you can see the bag's basically empty, but that's not all. There's more. In this little front pocket I've got here, I store just a couple of little knickknacks, right? These aren't gonna be that interesting. I apologize ahead of time. This is a step-down ring for my filter. So this filter, comes in a certain size. I think it's sized for this lens and this lens. It fits the same diameter here, right? This step-down filter will take that, or this step-down ring will take that filter and step it down to a smaller size. And so here I would be able to screw this filter onto my 45mm lens. I know, not super exciting. This, however, might be super exciting because it's tiny and cute, but incredibly useful. This is a tripod, which, obviously is not a tall tripod. It just sits this high, but it's really good for holding the camera steady. You can change the positioning of it. You can, I don't know, it's good for long exposure shots when you're out in the field and you don't want to be carrying a large tripod. It's like that. And then, as you can see, I can change the tilt of the camera, which normally you wouldn't be able to do without a tripod. And so that's pretty handy. And then what's really cool is that it folds up and it fits almost flush with the bottom of the camera. Now I can't set it down straight unless I pull that out again. So that's why it's not on the camera all the time, but it is in my bag virtually all the time. And the final thing I have in my camera bag, an SD card reader. This one is branded iFi because I have an iFi memory card in my EPM2. This video is recording to my EPM2. I have an iFi memory card. This card reader works with any card, and it's quite handy to have an SD card available, even though, in truth, probably 90% of my image transfers, if not more, go through Wi-Fi. And so that is essentially the inside of my camera bag. Let's pull all these things into view so you can see, so you can appreciate the full glory of a Micro Four Thirds camera bag and how small it is. Naturally, one of the benefits of Micro Four Thirds is that I can carry around all this equipment, have this flexibility and quality glass without having to carry around a huge bag. This isn't even heavy. This is all really fairly light stuff. And this is stuff that I could, if I wanted to, bring to work with me every day. I end up usually just bringing the EPM2 to work, but hell, if I wanted to, I could bring everything here. It goes with me on my motorcycle trips, it goes with me on my hiking. It's super simple, super compact, and really great quality images. That about does it for my tour of my camera bag. I hope you enjoyed. If you're interested in more videos about topics relevant to Micro Four Thirds shooters and really anybody that's into photography, click on the subscribe button down below. Maybe like the video, share it with a friend. And that's about it. I'll see you next time.